It's just a small reunion, my dad said when I was left out of my brother's big engagement party. So I posted a selfie from a ski trip instead. A few hours later, my entire family started blowing up my phone. Story 1. Madison's story. You're a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out of our house. Allison shrieked, her face contorted with rage. I just burst out laughing. Because standing there, watching her try to kick me out of the home I owned, felt like the most ridiculous, infuriating, and utterly satisfying moment of my life. You know, for years, my younger brother Ryan and I were inseparable. Like, truly inseparable. Our childhood was a blur of new towns and faces thanks to Dad's job, but we always had each other. I was the older sister, always looking out for him, always his protector. That bond, that deep, unwavering connection, was something I always cherished. Life changed drastically 3 years ago when our parents died in a tragic car accident. It shattered our world. They left me the family home and some rental properties, while Ryan inherited their financial assets. It made sense. I was already deep in real estate, building up my own portfolio since college. Ryan, a talented graphic designer, had no interest in being a landlord. But Mom and Dad's death hit Ryan hard. He spiraled into a deep depression, lost his job, and his girlfriend left him. My heart broke watching him. The family home was sitting empty, so I told him, move in. No rent, no timeline. Just get back on your feet. He looked at me with this flicker of hope I hadn't seen in months, and I thought, this is what family does. For a while, it worked. Ryan slowly healed, started freelancing again. Then Allison came into the picture. They met at a grief support group, and everything moved at warp speed. 3 months, and they were getting married. I had my reservations, it felt so fast, but I wanted my brother to be happy. I even gave them a generous wedding gift, which Allison snatched up before Ryan could even thank me. That should have been my first clue. Things started changing the moment they were married. I visited for our traditional Sunday dinners, and the house, our family home, was unrecognizable. Mom's antique console, gone. All our family photos, gone. Replaced with sterile, generic decor. Allison called our cherished heirlooms outdated. She even donated some of them. You can't build a future surrounded by the past, right? She'd say, with that fake, saccharine smile. I noticed Ryan changing too. He was anxious, checking Allison's face before speaking, avoiding old family stories if she was around. He started making excuses for why I couldn't visit. And the heirlooms kept disappearing. Dad's first editions, Mom's silver, her hand-painted dishes. I tried to talk to Ryan, but he'd just give me apologetic glances, too afraid to speak up. I was losing my brother. Then, one Tuesday, I went to the house to grab some tax documents. Ryan hadn't replied to my text, which was becoming typical. Using my key, I let myself in. The house felt alien. The hallway where our life's timeline of photos once hung was now generic, like a hotel. In the office, I found something that made my blood run cold. On Allison's open laptop screen was an online marketplace listing. My mother's vintage Tiffany lamp, a wedding gift from our grandmother, listed for $800. My family's legacy being sold off piece by piece. I snapped photos. Dozens of our heirlooms were listed. Just then, I heard Allison and Ryan coming in. I closed the laptop, walked downstairs, and tried to keep my voice steady. I texted Ryan about some tax documents, I said. Allison's smile froze. Your key, she repeated flatly. Ryan, I thought we discussed this. Ryan shuffled his feet, avoiding my gaze. Allison chimed in, it's inappropriate for you to have unrestricted access to our home. The sheer audacity. My property. But then she made a comment about my empty life and not settling down, and I just asked Ryan, are you really okay with erasing every trace of our family? He looked broken, but Allison cut him off. Don't manipulate him. Just because your life is empty doesn't mean you can cling to your brother forever. And then Ryan, my brother, said, maybe it's best if you go now, Maddie. It broke me. 2 days later, my key didn't work. The locks had been changed. Ryan texted an apology, saying Allison thought it was best for security. He promised to set aside my requested items, but he never did. A month later, An unknown number sent photos of a storage unit. Not Mom's jewelry box, not the photo albums, not Dad's books. Just random boxes of old clothes. When I called Ryan, Allison answered. "Ryan's busy," she said, scoffing. "You mean your parents' old junk?" "Ryan is moving forward with his life. You should try it sometime." She hung up. My brother then texted that he needed a break from the drama. I felt utterly helpless. Was I losing him forever? The final straw was discovering, through social media, that they were hosting a housewarming party in my house, and I wasn't invited. I decided not to crash the party. Instead, I waited until Sunday, our traditional dinner day, and showed up with a homemade apple pie. Allison opened the door, her face hardening. "Madison, this isn't a good time." She sighed dramatically, eventually letting Ryan come to the door. "Look, Allison and I have some friends coming over," he mumbled. "Ryan, you've canceled on me 6 times." I exclaimed. Then Allison stormed out, arms crossed. "This is exactly the kind of intrusion I'm talking about. Guilt trips about family traditions. I texted yesterday." I shot back. She rolled her eyes. "You're a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out and stay out of our house." And that's when I burst out laughing. Just hysterical, tear-inducing laughter. Allison's face was pure fury. "You think this is funny? I'll call the police." "Have you removed for trespassing?" "Oh, please do," I gasped, wiping tears. "Try to make me." "Call the police." I'd love to see their faces. Ryan looked absolutely panicked. "Madison, please." "No, Ryan," I said, suddenly calm. "I've respected your wishes for months. I've watched our heirlooms disappear. I've tolerated being locked out of my own property. But I'm done." Allison's eyes narrowed. "Your property? This is our house. Ryan inherited it." I reached into my purse, pulled out a folder. "Actually, no. Ryan inherited their financial assets. I inherited the house, and I have the deed to prove it." I opened the folder. The color drained from Allison's face. "You're lying," she shrieked. "The deed is registered in my name," I continued, showing them. "I've been letting Ryan live here rent-free to help him get back on his feet." Ryan looked like he was about to throw up. Allison snatched the papers, scanning them, her expression morphing from disbelief to absolute, terrifying rage. "You lied to me," she screamed at Ryan. "You said you own this house. All this time we've been making improvements to her property." She grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the police. This has to be fraud." "Go ahead," I said, following her inside. "Call them. I have all the documentation right here." 20 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. Allison launched into her story about fraud and harassment. I calmly presented my deed, property tax receipts, and excerpts from our parents' will. Officer Ramirez, after examining them, stated, "The property is legally registered to Madison Reynolds." Allison was speechless. "That's impossible. Ryan told me he owned this house." My brother just shrunk under everyone's gaze. "Ryan, did you misrepresent ownership to your wife?" Officer Jenkins asked. Ryan mumbled, I didn't correct her assumption." "You pathetic loser." Allison exploded. "You let me believe we had assets. Security. I've been planning renovations, telling everyone this was our family home." She grabbed a decorative vase and hurled it against the wall. It shattered. "Ma'am, control yourself," Officer Jenkins warned. "I am the victim here," she screamed, grabbing a framed wedding photo and smashing it on the floor. "That's enough," the officer said. "Legally, this is not your home, and you're destroying property that doesn't belong to you." She was given 2 choices: leave voluntarily or be arrested for destruction of property and disorderly conduct. She stared at Ryan, who stood helpless. "Fine," she spat. "But this isn't over. Ryan, are you coming or staying with your precious sister?" Ryan looked torn, then followed her out, saying, I should go with you. We need to talk." As she slammed the door, Allison yelled, "Enjoy your empty house and your empty life, Madison." I stood there alone in the silent, damaged house, then sank onto the unfamiliar leather couch and just cried. That night, Ryan texted, "Staying at hotel tonight. Need time to think." The next morning, he showed up, haggard. "She refused to let me sleep in the bed," he mumbled. "Said I betrayed her." He confessed everything. How Allison assumed he owned the house and he, at rock bottom, didn't correct her. How she subtly isolated him, controlled his finances, made him cut off friends and family. The more he talked, the clearer it became. "Ryan," I said gently, "I think you might be in an emotionally abusive relationship." He started to object, then stopped. "I've had the same thought," he admitted. We talked for hours, really talked for the first time in years. He revealed how Allison had deleted his friends' contacts from his phone, made scenes that cost him freelance jobs, and belittled his design work. He finally saw it. The isolation. The control. The constant monitoring. It wasn't easy, but seeing that spark of awareness in his eyes, I knew my brother was coming back. That evening, we ordered pizza, sitting on the back porch, reminiscing. For the first time in ages, I saw him again. His dry humor, his passion for design. I gave him some research on emotional abuse. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," I told him. "Just get informed." The next morning, he had 7 pages of notes detailing Allison's behaviors. "I need time away from her," he said. "Every time I try to set boundaries, she breaks down or gets so angry I end up apologizing." "You can stay here as long as you need," I assured him. "It's your home, too." He looked around the sterile house, the absence of our family photos. "No," he said quietly, "this isn't home anymore. She's erased everything that made it special." His sadness broke my heart, but his clarity gave me so much hope. The confrontation with Allison arrived the next afternoon. She tried her sweet facade, then her rage, but Ryan held his ground. "I needed space to think, Allison," he said, "and I need you to respect that." She tried to pull her typical manipulation, the tears, the "I saved you" narrative, the implied threats. But Ryan, stronger now, didn't crumble. He even called her out on the lawyer bluff she tried. "Madison stays," Ryan said firmly. "This is her house, and she's my sister." That statement, that unwavering declaration, was everything. Allison finally left, but not without one last barb. "Enjoy your empty house and your empty life, Madison." The next day, my attorney, Catherine, helped us. Allison had no legal claim to the property. We sent a formal letter for her to remove her belongings, and Catherine prepared an eviction notice as backup. Meanwhile, Ryan reconnected with his old design friends, got freelance work, and started therapy. Allison, however, wasn't done. She tried to break in, vandalized the house, spray-painted "liar" on the wall, slashed the mattress. The security cameras caught it all. She was arrested for violating the restraining order. During the legal proceedings, the real Allison emerged. Her dead husband was alive and well, with a restraining order against her. She had 2 previous marriages, both ending in restraining orders. My brother, in his vulnerability, had fallen for a master manipulator. The most profound healing came when the police found many of our family heirlooms in a storage unit rented in Allison's name. Dad's books, Mom's jewelry box, the photo albums. Each reclaimed item felt like reclaiming a piece of our family history, a piece of our parents. 6 months passed. Ryan and I lived together in the family home, restoring it room by room. We painted, we fixed, we filled it with laughter and shared memories. Ryan flourished in therapy, found a part-time position at his old firm. I, too, learned important lessons about helping versus rescuing. We talked about forgiveness, about not letting anger consume us. And then, as spring arrived, Ryan said, "It's time for me to find my own place. Not because I want to leave, but because I need to know I can stand on my own." I understood. The house would always be there. One evening, he said, "Maybe it's time we make it officially shared property." He wanted to create a family trust, ensuring the house remained a touchstone for both of us. It was a beautiful, powerful gesture. A year after that chaotic confrontation, Ryan moved into his own apartment. Framed family photos, prominently displayed. A new one of us, laughing on the porch, recreating a childhood pose. "Thanks to you," he said. "No," I gently corrected. "You did the hard work. I just provided a safe space for you to do it." Driving home, I realized what a tumultuous, painful, yet ultimately profound year it had been. What began as a property dispute became a reclamation of our relationship, our history, our individual strengths. Honesty, even when uncomfortable, builds stronger foundations. Love shouldn't require erasing yourself or your past. The house, when I pulled into the driveway, welcomed me. It was quieter, but never empty. It was filled with memories, with history, with the essence of the family that shaped us. I poured a small glass of bourbon, raised it to Mom and Dad's portrait above the fireplace. "We're okay," I whispered. "We made it through." And I knew, with every fiber of my being, they would have been so proud of both their children. This journey taught me a painful, but ultimately vital lesson. True support means empowering the people you love, not just rescuing them. It also showed me the incredible strength that comes from setting boundaries and speaking your truth, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. If you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, or seen a loved one trapped in a toxic relationship, I hope my story gives you courage. Let me know your experiences in the comments below, and if this resonated, hit like and subscribe for more real-life tales of family, resilience, and reclaiming your peace. Remember, sometimes, the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately bring the most healing. Story 2. Cassandra's story. What the actual hell, Cass? I know you're mad about the party, but did you really have to pull this stunt tonight of all nights? Megan is in tears. Mom is upset. Dad is furious. Thanks for making sure my engagement party will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. That was my brother Jason's voicemail, leaving me utterly shell-shocked. All I did was post an innocent ski selfie, and it detonated my entire family. You know, growing up, Jason and I were practically glued at the hip. He's 3 years younger, but he was my shadow, my confidant, and often my responsibility. Our parents had what you might call a volatile marriage, so it was usually just us two navigating childhood together. I taught him to ride his bike, scraped knees and all. I defended him from bullies in middle school. Our bond felt unbreakable. Even after I moved to Colorado for a dream job in graphic design, nearly 2,000 miles from home, we promised to stay close. We did for a while. Weekly video calls. I flew home for his graduation. He even spent a month with me in Colorado learning to snowboard. But slowly, inevitably, the distance started to create a rift. Then came Megan. Jason met her at a work conference about a year ago. She seemed smart, ambitious. I only met her twice, briefly, but I noticed something. She'd ask polite questions, but then quickly change the subject if I mentioned anything about Jason and me growing up. And after he started dating her, Jason became even more distant. My calls went to voicemail, my texts got shorter, and invites to visit were met with vague, maybe someday responses. Still, I never imagined it would come to this. It was a regular Tuesday evening in March. I was scrolling through Instagram when my cousin Angela's post hit me like a gut punch. Help me decide which one to wear to Jason and Megan's big engagement bash this weekend. #family celebration, #cousins getting married. An engagement bash this weekend? I blinked. I hadn't heard a single thing. Not an email, not a text, nothing. My first thought was, there has to be a mistake. Surely my brother would invite me to his engagement party. I called my mom. She immediately launched into her usual evasiveness. "Oh, Cassandra, I was just about to call you. How's the weather in Colorado?" I pressed her. "Mom, why haven't I been invited to Jason's party?" She claimed it was a small gathering, mostly family from both sides getting to know each other. Her voice, high-pitched and full of fibs, told me everything. Next, I called my dad. He's usually more direct. But he just said, "Cassandra, it's just a reunion of sorts. Nothing you need to worry about missing." He claimed the guest list had to be limited. But then I went back to social media. Aunt Patricia was posting about getting her hair done for the big event. My teenage cousin Tyler was complaining about having to wear a suit for Jason's fancy party. And then I saw it. Megan had created a private event page. The preview showed a formal invitation and a guest count well over 100 people. My hands shook as I called Jason. Straight to voicemail. I left a measured message. His reply? A text, "Super busy with work and wedding stuff. Talk later." No explanation. No invitation. Just a cold dismissal. The final blow. My high school friend Tammy Wilson, who barely knew Jason, was excited to attend. So, old acquaintances made the cut, but I didn't. The truth was undeniable. My brother was having a huge celebration, and I had been deliberately, completely excluded. The brother I had protected, supported, and loved fiercely had decided I didn't deserve to be there. That night, sleep was impossible. Hurt, confusion, anger, self-doubt, they all swirled inside me. Around 2 a.m., I called my best friend, Autumn. Jason is having a huge engagement party, I choked out, and I was not invited. Literally everyone else was. Autumn was instantly alert. That makes zero sense. You and Jason were always so close. She's always been fiercely loyal. Have you considered this might be Megan's doing? She asked. I had, vaguely. At Christmas, I overheard her telling Jason I seemed too career-focused to ever settle down, like it was some character flaw. Autumn scoffed. Classic insecurity. She probably feels threatened by a relationship with Jason. She told me to go on my planned ski trip. Living well is the best revenge, Cass. Morning came with a headache and puffy eyes, but also a new resolve. I would go skiing. I wouldn't cancel my life because my family had seemingly canceled me. As I packed, I fought back tears. My favorite ski jacket, a Christmas gift from Jason, a beautiful purple one. Only the best for my big sis, he'd said. I packed it. I also remembered that Christmas. Overhearing Megan in the kitchen, some women just aren't meant for family life. Too independent, you know. Jason says she hasn't had a serious relationship in years. And my mom's non-committal response. A seed of unease, now blooming into painful clarity. The drive to Breckenridge was exactly what I needed. The snow-covered peaks, the crisp mountain air. My coworker Dana, driving, singing 80s rock. Called dozing in the back. I felt the knot in my chest loosen. I confessed everything to Dana. Their loss is our gain, she said, shaking her head. We're going to have an epic weekend. The first few runs down the mountain were pure exhilaration. For a few blissful hours, there was no room for thoughts of Jason or Megan. Just the mountain, my skis, the next turn. But then, a family on a chairlift. A couple celebrating an anniversary. It brought it all back. Dana noticed. Okay, spill, she said, over hot chocolates. I told her everything. And that's when Dana got a mischievous glint in her eye. You know what you should do? Show them exactly what they're missing. While they're all stuffed in some boring country club, eating tiny appetizers, you're having the time of your life. Document it. Post it. Let them see that excluding you didn't ruin your weekend. It made it better. Kyle enthusiastically agreed. That evening, after a delicious dinner and drinks, I felt lighter. My phone remained off. This weekend was mine. The next morning, perfect. Fresh powder, bluebird skies. By midday, after several incredible runs, Dana suggested we take the highest lift to the summit for an unforgettable view. She wasn't wrong. Standing at 12,998 feet, with the Continental Divide stretching out, I felt tiny and infinite. This is the moment, Dana said, pulling out her phone. You're living my best life photo. I posed at the edge, my purple ski jacket, Jason's gift, a bright splash against the snow. My smile, for the first time in days, was genuine. Dana took several shots. Perfect. Without overthinking, I selected the best one, opened Instagram. My fingers hovered. Then I typed, sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you were born into. Best weekend ever. Hashtag no regrets, hashtag living my best life. I hit post, then tucked my phone away. Now, Kyle said, let's show you the secret powder stash. I was fully present for the rest of the day, embracing every run, every laugh. That evening, before heading to a fancy restaurant, I deliberately turned off my phone. Whatever was happening in Philadelphia could wait. Sunday morning brought gentle snowfall and a comfortable muscle ache. And then I remembered my phone. Trepidation. I turned it on. The cascade of notifications was immediate. 27 missed calls, 42 text messages, numerous voicemails. Mom, Dad, Jason, Angela, Aunt Patricia, cousins, even my grandmother. My stomach dropped. The first text from my mom, Cassandra, please call immediately. Your post has upset everyone. Then Angela, OMG, why would you do that? Everyone at the party is talking about your post instead of celebrating J and M. Then Jason's voicemail. The one that hit me like a physical blow. The one from The Hook. My ski selfie, posted around 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, had coincided exactly with the start of his engagement party on the East Coast. My caption, "Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you were born into," had been interpreted as a direct, deliberate attack. Aunt Patricia had sent screenshots of guests huddled, phones in hand, discussing my post. Megan teary-eyed. Dad's voicemail was clipped and cold. Your behavior is completely unacceptable. You have embarrassed this family deliberately. But it was Megan's text, the first I'd ever received from her, that truly gutted me. I always tried to be nice to you despite what Jason told me about how selfish and attention-seeking you can be. Thanks for proving him right. Hope your ski trip was worth ruining our special night. Jason. My brother. The one who knew me best. He had described me as selfish and attention-seeking. That hurt more than any exclusion ever could. Dana and Kyle were horrified. Holy overreaction, Batman. Dana exclaimed. If they had invited you, none of this would have happened. My cousin Tyler even sent a video of the moment my post went viral at the party, the whispers, Megan's face crumbling, Jason's expression darkening from confusion to anger. Even my grandmother, bless her, messaged, "Cassandra, I did not know you were not invited." That was wrong of them, but your timing could have been better, dear. As we drove back to Denver, the silence was heavy. I knew a real confrontation lay ahead. My innocent selfie had exposed deep fault lines in my family, and there was no going back. 3 days passed. 3 days of ignored calls from my parents, tense texts from extended family, and complete silence from Jason. I booked a flight to Philadelphia. My boss, Julia, bless her, just said, "Take what you need. The Anderson project can wait." Nothing, though, could have prepared me for the ice-cold reception at my parents' house. My mom opened the door, her smile tight. My dad, emerging from his study, simply said, "So you decided to show up after all." I was never given the chance to show up for the party, I replied, determined to be honest. Seated in the living room, my parents laid into me. Your behavior was completely inappropriate, Dad declared. To publicly embarrass your brother and his fiancée was unacceptable. I posted a photo from my ski trip, I countered, keeping my voice level. I didn't mention Jason, Megan, or the party. My caption was about appreciating the friends who were actually including me in their lives. My mom fidgeted. It was a complicated situation. Megan's family is very traditional. I didn't buy it. What does that have to do with inviting your son's only sister to his engagement party? They exchanged glances, then Mom said, "We should wait for Jason. He and Megan are coming for dinner at 6. Those 3 hours were agonizing. At 6, the doorbell rang. Jason entered first, his expression guarded. Megan followed, clutching his arm, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Cassandra," Jason said stiffly, "I didn't know you'd be here." Seems to be a pattern lately, I shot back, regretting the passive-aggressive tone instantly. Dinner was a masterclass in uncomfortable small talk. Finally, over dessert, Jason confronted me. "Why did you do it, Cass? Why did you post that right when our party was starting?" "I had no idea what time your party started," I said honestly. "I wasn't exactly included in the planning." "But you knew it was that day," he pressed. "You must have known your post would cause drama." "I knew you were having a party I wasn't invited to," I admitted. "But I was having a genuinely good moment and shared it." "Not everything is about you, Jason." Megan made a small, derisive sound. "Right? Pure coincidence." That subtle mockery, the dismissiveness, something in me snapped. "Why was I not invited, Megan?" I asked directly. "I'd really like to hear your explanation." She looked at Jason, clearly expecting him to field the question. "It was a difficult decision," Jason began, launching into corporate speak about venue limitations and budget considerations. "Stop," I interrupted. There were over 100 people there. Second cousins we haven't seen in years. Mom's book club friends. Don't insult me by pretending this was about space or money. Jason's professional facade crumbled. "Fine. You want the truth? Megan didn't want you there. She feels you've never made an effort, that you judge her lifestyle choices, that you're constantly competing for my attention. And after seeing how self-centered your post was, can you blame her?" The room went silent. My mom gasped. My dad suddenly became fascinated by his napkin. "And you?" I asked, looking directly at Jason. "Did you not want me there either?" He had the grace to look ashamed. "I wanted peace. Megan was stressed enough." "So you knew," I said slowly, the full weight of the betrayal settling. "You knew I was being excluded, and you chose to go along with it." I turned to my parents. "And you too? You're okay with your daughter being the only immediate family member not invited?" My mom stared at her cheesecake. Dad chimed in, "We thought it best not to make waves." Given the distance, it seemed practical. "Practical?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "How practical of you all to decide I was disposable. To pretend I don't exist when it's inconvenient to include me. No one said you were disposable." Jason protested. "No one had to say it." I shot back. "Your actions made it perfectly clear." I stood up. "For the record, I've made every effort with Megan. I barely know her choices because you've shared so little about your relationship with me. And as for competing for your attention, I've spent the last year trying to maintain even a basic level of communication while you've become increasingly distant." Megan flushed. "Jason told me how you always try to one-up everyone. Is that really how you describe me?" I asked Jason, genuinely shocked. "Your sister who practically raised you? Who defended you against bullies? Who spent her childhood making sure you never felt overlooked?" "You're being melodramatic," my father interjected. "No, Dad," I retorted. "For once, I'm standing up for myself instead of accepting the family narrative that my feelings don't matter." I looked at each of them. I've spent my entire life being the reasonable one, the one who doesn't make waves. And where has that gotten me? Excluded from my own brother's engagement party, then vilified for daring to enjoy my weekend anyway. I walked to the door. "I'm not going to apologize for posting that selfie. If anything, I'm grateful it exposed what was already true, that I'm an afterthought in this family. Someone to be accommodated when convenient and discarded when not." "Cassandra, don't leave like this," my mother pleaded. "I'll be at the Marriott downtown if anyone decides they want an honest conversation," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "But I'm done pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't." Walking out into the cool Philadelphia evening, I felt something unexpected. Not just hurt, but a strange sense of liberation. For the first time, I had refused the role assigned to me. I had spoken my truth. It felt like a victory. My hotel room became my sanctuary for 3 days. I worked remotely, waiting to see if anyone would reach out. The silence stretched. Then, on the 3rd evening, a knock. Jason, standing alone, looking uncertain. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in. "I'm sorry," he finally said, the words heavy with effort. "I handled everything badly. The party, your exclusion, the aftermath. All of it." "Why?" I asked simply. Why let her believe those things? Why exclude me? "What happened to us, Jason?" He sighed deeply. "I got caught between loyalties. Megan comes from this perfect-seeming family. I wanted to fit into that world so badly. And you reminded me of our decidedly imperfect family. Plus," he admitted, "whenever I mentioned you, she'd get this look. She never outright said she didn't want you around, but I could tell she felt threatened by our relationship, by our history. So you chose the path of least resistance," I said, the hurt still there, but understanding dawning. He confessed he was a coward, afraid of rocking the boat with Megan, so he sacrificed our relationship instead. "I broke your trust, and then I blamed you for reacting to being hurt." We talked for hours that night, peeling back layers of misunderstanding. I learned that Megan felt intimidated by our close bond. She came from a family where siblings were cordial, not close. She just wanted to minimize our dynamic. 2 weeks after I returned to Colorado, my parents called. It was a difficult, honest conversation. My mom cried. My dad, for perhaps the first time ever, admitted fault without qualification. "We should have stood up for you. We were wrong." The most surprising development came a month later. An email from Megan. Long, thoughtful. "I owe you an apology," it began. She admitted her insecurities, her own family's curated image of perfection, how she had blamed me for her own issues. She ended with a request to start fresh, to build a relationship based on mutual respect. It was more than I expected. The road to rebuilding trust wasn't easy. There were setbacks. But there was progress too. Jason and I established weekly video calls. I reached out to Megan directly. My parents started visiting Colorado. 6 months after the debacle, I stood beside Jason at his wedding, a bridesmaid. He hugged me tightly before the ceremony. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. At the reception, Megan found me. I understand now, she said, that having you as a sister-in-law is not a threat to our marriage, but a gift to our family. Flying back to Colorado, I reflected. The exclusion from the engagement party had been painful, but it forced overdue conversations. It required all of us to examine our patterns. Families are complicated, messy things. They can hurt us deeply, but they can also heal in ways that surprise us. That ski selfie? It's still on my Instagram. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most necessary growth. A reminder that we all deserve to be seen, to be included, to be valued by those who claim to love us. And a reminder that standing up for yourself doesn't mean losing the people who matter. Sometimes, it's the only way to truly find them again. If you've ever felt excluded or overlooked by your own family, I hope my story gives you courage. The courage to speak your truth, to set boundaries, and to believe that real relationships can survive honesty, even thrive because of it. Sometimes, the most painful moments actually clear the path for the most necessary growth, helping you rediscover the true meaning of family, whether chosen or blood. Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And if this resonated, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Remember, sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. Remember, sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. And what a transformation it was. The months following Jason's wedding weren't a Hollywood montage of instant, perfect harmony. Far from it. It was more like tending a delicate garden after a harsh winter, slow, tentative, requiring constant care and a willingness to pull out stubborn weeds. But the seeds of change had been planted. Jason and I established our weekly video call ritual. At first, it was a little stiff, a little formal, as if we were both still testing the waters. He'd update me on work. I'd tell him about my latest design projects. Then, slowly, the old ease returned. He'd tell me about Megan's latest organizational craze for their new apartment or a funny story from his work. I'd vent about a difficult client, and he'd offer genuinely insightful advice, his graphic designer's brain kicking in. It wasn't just catching up, it was connecting. It was sacred time, just for us, like our pancake mornings of old. My relationship with Megan, too, began to thaw. Her initial apology email was just the first step. When I flew home for a quick visit a few months after the wedding, she actually met me for coffee. Just us. No Jason, no parents. It was still a little awkward. She brought up her perfect family again, how much pressure she felt, how our family seemed so real. And I, for the first time, truly saw her insecurity, not as an attack on me, but as a reflection of her own struggles. I shared a little about growing up with our parents' volatile marriage and how Jason and I leaned on each other. It wasn't a quick fix, but it was a bridge. A tentative, necessary bridge. And my parents? They were trying. My mom, especially. She started calling more, asking about my life in Colorado, not just the weather. She even asked for my opinion on things, something she hadn't done in years. My dad, ever the stoic, struggled more. Emotional conversations still made him visibly uncomfortable, but he'd make an effort. When I'd visit, he'd actually sit and listen while I talked, sometimes even offering a rare, thoughtful comment. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. This new, fragile dynamic felt like a constant balancing act. I was learning to articulate my needs without feeling guilty, to set boundaries not as a punishment, but as an act of self-respect. My therapist, Dr. Patel, was a godsend. She helped me understand how I'd fallen into the role of the reasonable one, the peacekeeper, often at the expense of my own feelings. Cassandra, she'd say, peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the ability to navigate conflict with integrity. That resonated with me deeply. My job at the design agency was thriving. The Anderson project, the one I'd left behind to fly home, ended up being a huge success. Julia, my boss, was incredibly supportive. My life in Denver felt full, vibrant. I had my friends, my work, the mountains always calling. But there was still a quiet corner of my heart that yearned for something more. A deeper connection, a partner to share it all with. Then I met Alex. It was at a local art fair. I was browsing a stall of handcrafted jewelry, completely absorbed, when someone bumped into me. "Oh, I'm so sorry," a deep, warm voice said. I looked up, and there he was. Tall, kind eyes crinkling at the corners, a genuine smile. He had a smudge of paint on his cheek from an art demonstration, and I found myself smiling back a real, unguarded smile. His name was Alex. He was a landscape architect, passionate about sustainable design, and he had this infectious laugh that made my own feel lighter. We talked for what felt like hours, amidst the chatter and music of the fair. We connected over a shared love for the outdoors, for creativity, for dogs. He had a golden retriever named Gus, and for proper coffee. It was easy, comfortable, exciting. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with my family drama or my career, but just me. Our first few dates were effortless. Hiking in the foothills, discovering hidden coffee shops, late-night talks that stretched until the early hours. Alex was everything I hadn't realized I was looking for. He listened intently, celebrated my successes, and gently challenged my assumptions. He had a quiet confidence, grounded in his own values and healthy boundaries that he articulated clearly and respectfully. He never tried to fix me, never dismissed my feelings, and always encouraged my independence. He admired my drive, my passion for design, my life in Colorado. It was a stark contrast to some of the subtle narratives I'd heard about my career-focused or too independent nature. As our relationship grew serious, I knew it was time to introduce him to my family. This was a new test, not just for Alex, but for me. I wanted them to like him, of course, but more importantly, I wanted them to respect him and, in turn, respect me and my choices. The first introduction was a video call with my parents. It went fine. My mom was politely enthusiastic, asking Alex all the usual questions about his job and background. My dad was characteristically quiet, observing more than participating. Later, my mom called me. "He seems nice, sweetheart." "A landscape architect, you said? That's different. Does he have a steady career path?" "You know, something more traditional." There it was. That subtle undertone of judgment, of comparison. The old familiar feeling of not quite measuring up, of my choices always being scrutinized through a lens of conventionality. But this time, it didn't send me spiraling. Dr. Patel's words echoed in my mind. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the ability to navigate conflict with integrity. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "Alex is incredibly talented and passionate about his work. His career is thriving, and he's building a business that aligns with his values. I think that's far more important than whether it fits a traditional mold. And more importantly, he makes me happy." My mom mumbled something non-committal, but I knew I'd stated my boundary. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. Introducing Alex to Jason and Megan was next. We planned a weekend visit to Philadelphia. I was a bundle of nerves. Jason, bless his heart, had been genuinely excited, asking me endless questions about Alex. Megan had been reserved. "That's nice, Cass," she'd said, "as long as he understands you have a family now." That comment sent a tiny prickle of unease through me. The implication, "You neglected us before, don't do it again." The weekend arrived. We met up at a quaint little restaurant for dinner. Jason was warm and welcoming, genuinely happy for me. He and Alex immediately hit it off, finding common ground in design and outdoor interests. Megan, however, was a different story. She was polite, even charming, but there was an underlying tension, a subtle interrogation in her questions. She asked Alex about his family, his upbringing, his financial stability, his intentions with me. It felt less like getting to know him and more like an assessment. A vetting process. I watched Alex handle it with grace, answering honestly but not oversharing, always turning the conversation back to more general topics or to Megan herself. He was observant, too. Later, as we walked back to my hotel, he gently squeezed my hand. "Your sister-in-law is quite protective of Jason, isn't she?" he remarked, a thoughtful frown on his face. "And very interested in what she perceives as stability." I sighed. "You have no idea." I explained a little more about Megan's perfect family facade, her deep insecurities. Alex listened, his empathy clear. "It sounds like she's had to perform a certain role her whole life," he mused. "And maybe she sees your independence, your choices, as a threat to that carefully constructed narrative." His insight was profound, helping me to see Megan's behavior through a lens of compassion, rather than just irritation. The real test came a few months later at Thanksgiving. My parents had decided to host the entire extended family, a grand affair, reminiscent of the small gathering that sparked the Selfie saga. Alex was joining me, his first big family event with the Matthews clan. Megan's parents were also invited, adding another layer of performance and expectation to the mix. The house was buzzing with cousins, aunts, uncles, and the air crackled with a forced conviviality. Megan, in particular, was in full, perfect hostess mode, gliding through the rooms, impeccably dressed, her smile never faltering. Her parents, stiff and formal, surveyed the scene like benevolent monarchs. The day was going surprisingly well until dinner. We were all seated around the extended dining table, a sea of faces, some familiar, some barely remembered. Alex was seated next to me, engaging my Aunt Patricia in a lively conversation about local hiking trails. Jason was across from us, occasionally catching my eye with a reassuring smile. Then, Megan's mother, Mrs. Henderson, a woman with a perfectly coiffed silver bob and a perpetually pursed lip, turned her attention to me. "So, Cassandra," she began, her voice carrying across the table, "Jason tells us you're still living out in Colorado, pursuing your art. How quaint. Don't you ever worry about settling down? About finding a nice, established man and starting a family here in Philadelphia, closer to your roots?" The table quieted. It wasn't overtly hostile, but the implication was clear. My life choices were less than, my independence was a temporary phase, and my priority should be domesticity and proximity to their idea of family. A familiar knot tightened in my stomach. The old Cassandra would have laughed it off, changed the subject, or made a self-deprecating joke to diffuse the tension. But the new Cassandra, the one who had flown home specifically to stand her ground, felt a surge of something else, calm resolve. Before I could answer, Alex, ever the gentleman, spoke up. "Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice warm but firm, "Cassandra is established. She has a thriving career, a beautiful home, and a life she's built with purpose and passion. And she's found a partner who deeply respects and cherishes all of that." He met her gaze directly, a polite, unyielding smile on his face. Mrs. Henderson looked momentarily stunned, and used to anyone directly challenging her veiled pronouncements. She attempted a dismissive sniff. "Well, I suppose it's important to find happiness wherever you are, even if it's far from home." It was Jason who then surprised everyone. "Actually, Mom," he said, addressing my mother, "Cassandra's independence and her drive to build her own life are two of the things I admire most about her. And it's one of the reasons I pushed myself to get back on my feet after Mom and Dad died. Seeing her strength inspired me." His words hit me like a wave. Not only had he defended me, but he'd also articulated why my choices mattered and how they had positively impacted him. It was a complete reversal of the narrative Megan and her family had tried to build. My mom looked surprised, then a small, proud smile touched her lips. My dad, who had been watching the exchange intently, gave a subtle nod in my direction. Megan, however, looked mortified. Her carefully constructed facade wavered. She shot a furious glance at Jason, then at her mother, who was now engaged in a hushed, intense conversation with her husband. The carefully orchestrated, perfect family dynamic was cracking under the weight of genuine emotion. Later that evening, after the last guests had finally departed, the house fell silent. Just my parents, Jason, Megan, Alex, and me. The tension was palpable. My mom was tidying up nervously. My dad retreated to his study. Jason and Megan were in the living room, a quiet, strained conversation happening. I found Alex in the kitchen, pouring us each a glass of water. "You handled that beautifully," he said, squeezing my hand. "Both you and Jason." I nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. "I think it's time for another honest conversation," I said. Jason and Megan were still in the living room, Megan looking tearful, Jason looking utterly defeated. I sat on the couch opposite them, Alex beside me. "Megan," I started, "what happened tonight? It wasn't fair to Alex, and it wasn't fair to me. It felt like you were trying to make a point, or to prove something." Megan's head snapped up. "I wasn't trying to make a point. My mother was just trying to understand. You always make everything about you." The familiar defensiveness, the quick turn to accusation. "No," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "I'm not making this about me. I'm making this about us. About how we move forward, genuinely." "Megan, when Jason and I spoke after the engagement party, he told me about your family. About the pressure you felt to maintain a certain image. And I think I understand some of that." Her eyes widened, surprised. She looked at Jason, who nodded, giving her a reassuring look. "It's true," he said softly. "We talked about it. And I understand it, too, now." Megan hesitated, then slowly, tentatively, she began to speak. "My whole life," she started, her voice barely a whisper, it was about appearances. "My parents built this image of perfection, the perfect house, the perfect kids, the perfect marriage. But behind closed doors, it was different. Lots of arguments, lots of resentment. But we were never allowed to show it. Never allowed to be anything less than perfect. She confessed how terrifying it was when she met Jason, who was so raw, so open about his grief, his struggles. And how our family, with its messy, emotional history, felt both threatening and deeply alluring to her. When Jason talked about you, Cass, about how close you were, how you always had each other's backs, it scared me. My own siblings are cordial, but we don't have that. I felt like I could never measure up, that you'd always have this special bond, and I'd just be an outsider." The words tumbled out, years of hidden insecurities and manufactured perfection finally cracking open. She admitted her fear of losing Jason to me, of him seeing me as better, more real. She confessed how she'd subtly undermined me, trying to create distance, because she didn't know how else to secure her place. The comment about my career-focused life, the jabs about independence, they weren't about me at all, but about her own deep-seated fears of not being enough in a family that valued genuine connection over curated image. It was heartbreaking, but also incredibly liberating. For both of us. For the first time, I saw her not as a rival, but as a person struggling with her own inherited baggage, just like we all were. "Megan," I said gently, reaching across the coffee table, "you don't have to be perfect for us. We're messy. We argue. We make mistakes. But we also show up for each other. And you're family now. My relationship with Jason doesn't take anything away from your marriage. It just adds to the richness of our family." Jason, who had been listening intently, reached for Megan's hand. "She's right, Meg. You don't have to be the perfect daughter or the perfect wife. You just have to be you. And I love you for that." The dam broke. Megan burst into tears, not of anger or frustration, but of relief. It was a raw, honest moment, the kind that can only happen when years of carefully guarded facades finally crumble. My parents, drawn by the sounds, came back into the living room. They didn't understand the full depth of the conversation, but they witnessed the raw emotion, the genuine connection forming. My mom, in a rare moment of maternal instinct, sat next to Megan and put an arm around her, comforting her. My dad, still quiet, watched with a thoughtful expression. That night, a deeper understanding settled over us. It wasn't about blame anymore. It was about inherited patterns, about the roles we play, and about the courage it takes to break free from them. Megan had needed to be seen, to be accepted for her imperfections, just as I had needed to be seen, to be valued for my true self. And Jason? He had finally found his voice, not just to defend me, but to protect and affirm his wife in her vulnerability. Over the next few months, things continued to shift. Megan started seeing a therapist, encouraged by Jason and the surprising ease of our honest conversation. She began unpacking the pressures of her upbringing, slowly, painstakingly. She even started talking more openly about it with Jason, creating a level of intimacy in their marriage that hadn't been possible before. My parents, too, seemed to ease into a new phase. My mom continued to make an effort, and my dad, surprisingly, started reaching out to Alex on his own, asking about his work, even occasionally discussing current events with him during our calls. They were learning to appreciate the nuances of our choices, to see happiness beyond their traditional expectations. Alex and I continued to build our life together. His unwavering support and his own healthy perspective were invaluable. He helped me navigate the lingering complexities of my family without getting drawn into their drama, always reminding me that my worth wasn't tied to their approval, but to my own integrity. He was my rock, my partner, and my chosen family. A year later, on a crisp autumn day, Jason called me. "Hey Cass," he said, his voice tinged with excitement. "Megan and I have some news. We're thinking of adopting a dog. A rescue, a golden retriever mix. We've been talking about it for ages, and we finally feel ready." My heart swelled. A dog. A new, messy, imperfect, loving addition to their lives. A sign of growth, of embracing life beyond curated perfection. "That's wonderful, Jason," I exclaimed. "What are you going to name him?" We were thinking. "Gus," he said, and I laughed, a genuine, joyful laugh. It was a subtle nod to Alex, a recognition of his place in our lives, a quiet testament to the bridges we had built. My relationship with my family isn't perfect, and probably never will be. We still have our moments. Old patterns can be stubborn. But the difference now is that we have the tools, and more importantly, the will, to navigate them honestly. There's a newfound respect, a deeper understanding, forged in the crucible of conflict and vulnerability. I still have that ski selfie on my Instagram feed. It sits there, not as a monument to past hurt, but as a quiet reminder of a turning point. A testament to the power of one moment, one honest act, to unravel years of unspoken truths. It reminds me that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's an act of love, for yourself and, ultimately, for those you care about. Because true connection can only flourish in the light of honesty. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to speak your truth, you don't lose your family. You finally find them. You find the real ones, the messy, complicated, imperfect ones who are willing to grow with you. And in doing so, you discover a strength you never knew you had, and a kind of healing that transforms everything. That's the most beautiful transformation of all.